Hello, you're watching WNBA Courtside. I'm Cyrus and I'm here with the crew. We've got the members with us. It's Lee, Lethabo, Lee writes a lot, and the real Kaunda Chama. Thank you, peeps, for being here. You know, the WNBA Courtside show is our show. We love talking all things WNBA. And this particular episode, we're going to be talking about the Seattle Storm. I think some of us have sort of written them off a little too early, and man, they are making a rush for it. So I'm going to start by asking Lee, do you think we were a little premature in saying maybe they're not going to go back to back?
I still think it's too early in the season to be giving them the title already. Like I said, back to back is difficult, and they're doing it with new personnel. And as far as I'm concerned, the Sue Bird minutes question is still something that hovers over them. I mean, I think they're kind of sort of managing it there and there, but I mean, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. Playoffs are a different beast. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's just other teams that I find a lot more fascinating. I don't know. I definitely think don't count them out, but simultaneously, back to back is just not going to be easy for them. I really don't think it's going to be an easy campaign. They've lost a lot of players as well, so.
Look, that definitely is true. I mean, let's look at the standings as they currently are when we record this. They've lost one game. That was the reverse fixture against the Las Vegas Aces. But breathing down their neck is the Connecticut Sun, who a lot of people didn't necessarily see coming. At least that's people not named Lethabo Nxumalo. So, Kaunda Chama, when we look at that, and we see that the Storm are 6-1. I mean, that's as good a start as you're ever going to get in the WNBA. And we'll go through some of the statistics when we look at just how well they're performing. But do you think that we were premature here, Kaunda, or do you think it's one of those, like Lee says, you know, still early in the season? But having said that, the playoffs are a different beast of the regular season.
Look, I'm going to take a different stance to Lee. These are the defending champions, if you will. And they've been there before. They know what it takes to get there. They've got an MVP caliber Brianna Stewart balling her socks off. They've got a Sue Bird who looks like she's aging backwards. You got your Jordan Canada's, also playing in the backcourt very well. You got Jewel Lloyd. Jewel Lloyd is the pure hooper. So, Cyrus, I think they've got the pieces to make it happen again. It won't be an easy journey, nor was it last season. But if you ask me, you might have said, well, we might have prematurely written them off. And I think that could be the truth. And maybe this is the statement time that they're saying, hey, guys, we're not gone. We're not tired. Yeah. We were not exhausted from the wobble. We're back. And once we get clicking on all cylinders, we'll shock you. My take is they could do it again.
It's a really interesting thing, though, because Lee mentioned them losing players. They've actually literally just lost their coach. Their coach, Coach Hughes, retired last week. And so they've got a new head coach in Noelle Quinn. And they managed to carry on. They won their last game. I think it was the first with her in charge. But let's look at some stats here. I mean, they're leading the WNBA in points per game. The Seattle Storm currently averaging 89.6 points a game, leading the WNBA in assists a game. And that is a really big deal because if you're sharing the ball, chances are you will get the points that you need. And then when you see that from the offensive end, you tend a look then at the defensive end. They're in the top 5 when it comes to a lot of the most important stats. Rebounds a game, they're tied third most in the dub. Steals per game, they're in third place. And then 4th position in blocks per game. This is the team who have lost Natasha Howard, who was a Defensive Player of the Year award winner. So, Lee, when we look at this, all of these things point towards a Storm team that will manage to get past their issues this season. So what I want to ask you then is, what is it about this team that makes you think others might beat them?
What do you basically asking?
So
why
for instance,
they're not...
let's say, why do you think maybe a Connecticut Sun might take the championship away from a Storm team who really have exactly the same playing pieces, bar a couple of important players, definitely?
I think firstly, it's the stupid question once again with her minutes. It's like, what do you do with her in the playoff run? I mean, right now, you can see, like, you have some games where she plays the full. I think last night against the Fever, she played the full 36. Which game was the one that went overtime?
Minutes.
She had a lot of minutes. Point being, was it the one? Was it last night's game or was it Connecticut where they played overtime and she played? I can't remember which game went overtime. Point being is that she played the 4 minutes, and in some games she's only there for like 12, 15 minutes a piece at best. And I mean, you do lose a bit of offensive flow when she's not there a bit. But I mean, they have a good replacement in Candice. Candice Dupree is a really good veteran who really knows how to space out the floor for them. So I think also the big question is what Joelle Lloyd shows up, right? Because I think the biggest thing for them is she. I've always said I've been watching Joelle Lloyd for the past couple of years, and I'm still waiting for her to kind of just take it up a notch. It's that going to the next level, like where you are in the MVP conversation. Where if we're talking Brianna, we're also talking about you. You're not just Robin. You're not the Robin to Batman anymore. You are now looking eye to eye. You're Superman. You get what I mean? And
no, get you. I totally get you.
And even right now at this season, she's just had like it's up and down, because one night, I think it was against Dallas, she gave you 25 points. She filled out the stat sheet. And then she'll have like a low game like Minnesota, where you think she only had like 12 points or something. So I think that's the big question for me, is what Joelle Lloyd is showing up.
But I mean, having said that though, and I think that's a really important point, we're still seeing a Joelle Lloyd who's producing. She might not necessarily be a 20 point or a 30 point Joelle Lloyd every night, right?
But I think they're really going to need that when it comes to the playoffs, when they have to dig deep and they don't have the same bench depth that they used to.
Now, I'm in total agreement with you. What's interesting, though, is that let's look at the other end of the floor. And this Kaunda is where you mentioned her a couple of times. She is one of the players who we have to keep talking about, and that's Breanna Stewart. Because if you've got Breanna Stewart on your team, you really can't go wrong. And right now in the dub, she's currently second in points per game, averaging 23.3 points per game. And then she's also up there in the top 2 for rebounds a game. So she's really making her presence felt when you're looking at where the play is actually happening on both ends of the court. Because, getting the ball in the defensive end and then running up the floor with it, or even getting the offensive rebounds, is definitely an important part of trying to make the most for your team, because you need to make the plays happen. Now, Breanna Stewart is an MVP. She has been there, been a finals MVP. Surely she's the kind of player who can drag this team kicking and screaming to another championship if the pieces around her aren't necessarily performing at the level that they should be at.
Yes, Cyrus, I'm a big believer in Stewie. I think Breanna Stewart is one of the best basketball players we have on the planet right now. Look, I was going to use a Stormzy analogy and say we're waiting on her backup dancers, but I won't go there.
Backup dancer! Backup dancer!
Yep.
What I want to say is the only team that can really ruin things for the Seattle Storm is the Seattle Storm. And I'll tell you why. It's because they're going to I can foresee them having a very good push in the regular season. But the most dangerous part of the WNBA playoffs is that single game elimination first round. And if they have a bad day at the office there, that's when you can see lights out and it's over for them.
But that's why you push so hard in the regular season to get into the first seed or the second seed, so you don't have to play the single elimination games. And this, for me, is why the regular season is so important in the WNBA, because once you get into that lottery of anything can happen in a single elimination game, then you've got big problems. I think that maybe to try and round off the conversation a little bit here, Lethabo, I want to ask you a question centered around what it is that you think the other teams in the WNBA have to do in order to beat the Storm and win the championship.
Well, if you can contain Brianna, which no one's really figured that out really. I mean, Brianna is the only person that can stop Brianna is Brianna. Like, if she gets in her own way. I don't think there has been a defensive setup or strat that we've seen that has worked. Like the only time really is when when the cylinders aren't working for her, but not because, this is a strat. So I think it's going to be interesting there, what happens in terms of that. What was the question again? Sorry, I got lost in...
What will teams have to do in order to beat the Storm? And you're answering that,
I think you'd have to find a way to stop, or you shoot the lights out. You figure out how to shoot the lights out against their defense. I think the Connecticut Suns can do, because once you add Alyssa Thomas now back into the mix, and now you have 3 people that could give you 20, 25.
A proper 3-headed monster.
Come on. No, look. So and they have the center who can actually guard. Maybe not like, stop her. It's just like there's no such thing as a LeBron stopper. I don't think there's such a thing as a Brianna stopper. But at least if you can limit her a bit, maybe, and then shoot the lights out, maybe.
Okay. Kaunda seems to be in his feels about this. Kaunda?
Look, just like in the NBA, you've got the LeBron frustrator, who's the Slim Reaper, who is Kevin Durant, who is the Durantula. In the NBA, I believe Jonquel Jones or Liz Cambage on a good day could frustrate Stewie. I've been seeing some blocks coming from that lady Liz that have been making me go, And Jonquel Jones on a good day could frustrate Stewie. Those guys have got long arms. They will block your shots. They will frustrate you in the paint. Unless Stewie's just like, beating them from the perimeter, yes. But if Stewie enters that paint and meets Lady Liz or Jonquel...
that's why it's been intentional every time that they face the Aces that they don't put Stewie at the 5. They put Ezzy at the 5, and then Stewie plays the 4. Because for that very, very freaking reason. Because especially when you have like a really good center, you're not trying to get bodied up as a Brianna Stewart.
No, definitely. And this, I guess, is where like our faith in the Aces has come from, because there is nobody who's going to stop Cambage. And really, Liz Cambage has been so good this season. And when she's on her game, she's equivalent to almost like a Joel Embiid. You can just push everybody around the court into the positions you want them to be in and give yourself the shots that you want. So I think that's why the Aces are a really good matchup against the Storm team, because they've got a point guard in Chelsea Gray who can really manage that game. They've got MVP Asia Wilson, who is just superb when she's on her game. And then you've got a Cambage who's just there. And obviously the Kelsey Plum, who I'm a massive fan of as well. So I think
they don't have a bench though.
No, that's true. Well, the bench isn't as good as it has been in the past, because they still have Dearica Hamby, who's perennial 6th woman of the year. So, but outside of them, the pickings aren't necessarily that great. But then, having said that, you look at the Storm and it's a similar situation. Yes, they have the likes of Jordan Canada. Yes, they have the likes of Ezzy Magabo if she's not necessarily starting. But then you start looking around, you be like, okay, but who else? And look, the Candice Duprees are playing well. I believe Katie Lou Samuelson should also be around, because she was playing 3-on-3 stuff for the US. So they do have players. And this might also be one of the things that the kind of things that they turn to when it gets to that end of the season. So we're leaving the Storm behind. We're going to finish off the show with a couple of remarks about one of our young African players really doing the thing. Michaela Onyenwere, Rookie of the Month. She's been sensational. She's averaging 12.1 points and 3.3 rebounds a game for a New York team who are still doing pretty well, considering they've fallen off the pace a little bit from where they were. I mean, what are they now? 5-2 at the time of recording?
I think they're third best record.
Yeah.
The third at 5-2 at the time we're recording this show, Cyrus. So I think you're quite right, because that performance coming from her is contributing to the Liberty's performance so far. And I think if she can keep it up and the rest of the squad can keep it up, look, the Liberty could do something in the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to lift up the trophy, but you know, they
you never know. Single elimination games, you could start seeing yourself climbing up the standings. You know, and I mean, if there's one thing we've liked about Onion Ware's game, and I know Lee, you've mentioned it, it's got to do with her hustle. She plays really hard for a rookie, and she doesn't look out of place in the WNBA. So
not at all.
Here's the thing. We've got two players who've been really sensational.
Woo!
One from the Connecticut Sun, one from the Seattle Storm. We've talked about Brianna Stewart a heck of a lot so far. She's averaging 22.5 points a game, 10.3 rebounds a game, and 2 blocks a game. She's the player of the month in the West, Jonquel Jones. 20 points, 20.3 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 3.3 assists. The Connecticut Sun are really using Jonquel to the max of her abilities. Tell us about what makes her so special, Lethabo.
She's a hustler on both ends of the floor. Like, she's just incredible. And she doesn't run out of energy. That's the crazy thing to me about it, is that the fact that you play on both ends on the floor and that you're so vicious on both ends of the floor, it's ludicrous. Like, she fills up the stat sheet. Like, Mama is just, she does everything. Like, she's not a luxury player. She's not like, oh no, I'm going to use that to... No, yep. I'm rebounding. I'm getting the defensive rebound, and then I'm going to push the. Let's go! Like, I appreciate that. I love her and Diwana Bonner as a duo. I think the both of them are just magnificent. I think in the first two games,
they combined for like 42 points, and then the next game was 41 points, and then I think in the last game against Seattle, they combined for 47 points. So, just wow, it's just a dynamic duo. Like, that's why I'm so hot on this team. Like, even last year, I was hot on this team. The difference is they didn't have the same personnel. So, yeah.
Great. I love what I'm seeing from her. I love what I'm seeing from that team.
But this is the thing. The Sun are they're going to have to make sure that they shine bright. Kaunda, last words on Jonquel Jones from you?
I've got to echo what Lethabo said, what Lee said. The motor on Jonquel Jones, it doesn't stop. She's like so well-rounded. She's not one of those players who miss a shot or who miss a dunk and sort of look around and say, what went wrong? Oh my word, I feel down. She's like, okay, that happened. Let's run back on defense. And also on defense, if she gets a defensive rebound, okay, we're running back on offense. That motor doesn't stop, Cyrus. And you got to love Jonquel Jones' hustle. I think that's the kind of a player you need at a team like the Connecticut Sun, especially. I see early on they're pushing for a high seed. They're pushing for a potential championship. Her, besides Diwana Bonner, Cyrus, it's just looking great so far, and I'm loving it. And I think she's deserving of the Player of the Month. And, of course, so is Brianna Stewart.
You know it. This is what they do. These ladies are putting all of it out on the floor, and they've been sensational. Thank you so much, guys. We'll come to the end of the episode. But make sure that when you're watching this show, you subscribe to the show, like this video, and tell us how much you love us on social media. From me, Cyrus, from Kaunda, and from Lee, it's see you next time on WNBA Courtside.